Welcome to VSB News Online for Monday, August the 11th. I'm Charles Webb. The case in which opposition leader Mark Bean has been accused of using offensive and insulting words towards former OBA Senator Tony Daniels resumed in Magistrates Court this morning, with the OBA MP Nandi Outerbridge saying she too had been offended by Mr. Bean's suggestion that the two female politicians were what they called political whores. The Crown completed its case, and Defense Counsel Charles Richardson moved that there was no case to answer and that the charge should be dismissed. The case resumes in Magistrates Court tomorrow morning. There's been an immediate response from government over the news that BEST is going to court to try to enforce what terms basic environmental standards on the South Basin Land Reclamation and Development Scheme. The Ministry of Home Affairs has issued the following statement, read by Brian Darby.
The Ministry says it certainly recognizes and acknowledges that further studies and information must be supplied as additional applications are submitted for future phases of the development. Given the very compressed timetable for the realization of the 35th America's Cup, the Development Applications Board granted planning permission, but with conditions attached relating to the further information requirements, including the operational details of the event village and other marine facilities and activities. Both the Ministry and the Department of Planning anticipate that additional information will be required for the event village and for the future marine and ports complex. This will include, for example, information on parking and traffic management, solid waste management, hazardous management, emergency and hurricane preparedness, etc. For the landfill itself, the board has already required the submission of a construction environmental management plan that must contain details of dust minimization, construction waste, oil and fuel spills, and a contamination management plan. The Ministry is confident, it says, that environmental due diligence has and will be taking place for the development of the South Basin. It is clear that WEDCO, ACBDA and various government departments are working quickly and often in parallel for the necessary deadlines to be met. The Ministry said it's satisfied that the accelerated program will result in an environmentally sound South Basin development, including a successful 35th America's Cup. Brian Darby reporting for VSB News.
Stuart Hayward of BEST is adamant that the granting of permission for all three stages of the South Basin development without a clear idea of what could be involved does not make for responsible planning.
The linkage of this end uses, as though it's important for the America's Cup, America's Cup has no stake at all in the end uses. It doesn't have to be rushed through, so it could be delayed and done properly. Done properly means proper public consultation, proper environmental impact assessment, and not just, do an impact assessment and say it's okay. Let's have it examined by professionals to make sure that it's quality, which wasn't done this time. So those three issues, I think, would be very good. If we could, we've been trying to cooperate with the America's Cup group. We've met several times with them, with their consultants. If the end uses were to be uncoupled from the America's Cup, that is done, because we've got 2 years before the end uses even would begin to come into play. There's time to do it right, and we believe that as a first step would be an indication that the government, America's Cup, and WEDCO want to do it right.
But you've also mentioned that transportation, entertainment, waste, that's all going to be part of the America's Cup experience.
Absolutely. We don't know what the interim uses are really going to entail. We've never had an America's Cup here before. Is it going to be several hundred people or several thousand? And the number of people who are going to be here will have an impact on the environment, and that ought to be assessed. It may be that we can live with it, but we can't even know if we should be living with it if it's not properly assessed.
The opposition Progressive Labour Party is calling on the Premier to step up the manhunt for the young man caught on camera with a minor at Cup match. And it says there is simply no logical excuse why the young man has not been identified and why he's still free. Chris Lodge has the story.
Police have released a picture of the man they want to question in relation to the incident, which involved a minor, but Walter Raban, Shadow Minister of National Security, is lamenting that the man has not been caught. He says the incident was disrespectful to the meaning behind Cup Match and everyone who went to the sporting event. In a statement last night, the Shadow Minister said over the last 10 days, we've been inundated with calls and messages from Bermudian parents who are highly concerned that the male involved in the sexual incident at Cup Match has not yet been apprehended. He says many in our community are duly concerned that even with a clear shot of his facial image and CCTV at St. George's Cricket Club, that the Bermuda Police Service nor members of the general public have yet to identify this perpetrator. Whether he was a resident of Bermuda or a guest, there is, he says, a database of passport photos and driver's licenses upon which facial recognition software could be run. We call upon the Premier and National Security Minister Michael Dunkley and Junior National Security Minister Senator Jeff Barron to step up the manhunt for this wanted individual. And we urge anyone in the public who may know this person to contact the Bermuda Police Service as soon as possible. I'm Chris Lodge, VSB News.
The police have responded that the indecent act at Cup Match was always being investigated actively and that progress was being made. At this juncture, they're still trying to identify the male on the video and are aware that a family member, friend, colleague, or associate may know the identity. The police are appealing for any information, however insignificant it may seem, to be forwarded to Inspector Mark Clark on 247-1086. In his new book, The Gunpowder Plot, author Michael Marsh tells fascinating tales about the secret committee and the name of the flagship in Bermuda which led the attack on Washington. He also reveals that as far back as 1775, there were tense moments between the British governor and the Bermuda public. Sound familiar? Here's more in part 2 of a 2-part interview. Now, in your book, you talk about the governor's ineptitude. Was anybody hanged as a result of this treasonable act?
Well, it wasn't only the governor's ineptitude, it was also the Bermudians. They're also at fault. I haven't blamed the governor for anything except being slack. He tried his best, but there was quite a group of Bermudians who were against anything he wanted to get done. And he couldn't enforce anything. So he was in a very sad state. The Bermudians didn't want to have a magazine keeper, a watch guard over the magazine. You've got to wonder why. Because they were probably thinking that it might be a good idea one day to arrange it as a bartering device with the Americans. But in any case, I paint a good picture of the governor and a weakness, and I paint a bad picture of the Bermudian conspirators, as well as the good side of the theft. So there are good and bad sides to both sides.
What would you most like your readers to derive from reading the book?
I would like, most of all, for people to begin to stop looking at cell phones and to read books on Bermuda's history. Most of us in Bermuda are really ambassadors, and our lives depend on tourism and exempt company business and so on. And if we don't know our own history, which is the most exciting you can imagine all the way through, I've ended this book with the short story of the attack on Washington for various reasons. And this will interest Americans. There's a lot of interest for Americans in this book. And I put in a great number of dates in chronological order. So I think children should read it, Bermudians should read it, they should learn history wherever they can get it, and read as many books on Bermuda's history as possible.
And we'll be back with more news right after this.
In an effort to make Bermuda's roads safer, and in partnership with Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Road Safety Council, Defon's Broadcasting is launching a safe driving campaign. Complete with thumb bands, come into Defon's Broadcasting and 94 Reed Street and make the commitment to drive safer and slower for yourself. Your voice could be featured on the radio. Get yourself a thumb band as a reminder of your commitment to drive safer and with fewer distractions. While you're at it, why not get one for someone in your life who also needs a reminder that our roads do not discriminate. They can take anyone's life. Let's drive safe, Bermuda, and arrive alive. Peace and love. Safe journeys.
Attorney Elmer Dismont has been selected by the Council of the Bermuda National Trust to be chair of its Advocates for the Environment Committee, one of its most important bodies. Trust President Tim Marshall said Mrs. Dismont was a great example of the next generation of young professionals who willingly volunteer their time and energy to make Bermuda a better place. Mrs. Dismont said she would do her best to be a strong advocate for the environment. Her committee was charged with reviewing and responding to planning applications and practices that have made significant impact on the natural environment and its well-being. Instead of waiting for women golfers to discover Bermuda, the Bermuda Tourism Authority has launched a marketing program to attract them here. For instance, there was a major Bermuda presence at the Ladies' European Masters in Buckinghamshire last week, where 17,500 well-heeled and traveled spectators were exposed to 2 Bermuda booths, one right by the leaderboard and the other serving dark and stormies. The BTA team was promoting the Women and Golf Trophy Tournament that takes place here in November and injects an estimated $165,000 into the economy. There's nothing static about the popular Pacha Kucha night at presentation by local speakers. This Thursday night it moves to the Young Men's Social Club on Angle Street in the city of Hamilton, starting at 6 p.m. Organizer Nikki Garay sets the scene.
In addition to Dwayne Lewis and the Young Men's Social Club history that he'll be talking about, we've got several other people coming to present, as Pecha Kucha Bermuda always does. We've got a lovely variety of people. We have a young Bermudian from studying at Stanford who's going to be talking about Spaceship Bermuda. We have another young Bermudian who's here for the summer break from SCAD in the art school in America, who's going to be talking about his art, which I understand is way out and of interest. When people see it, they're quite shocked and very interested in it. We also have what's dear to my heart, sand sculpture building, because that's coming up soon in Bermuda, the 20th. We have Hannah Emerson talking about how to build a sand sculpture, and we've got a few others that are presenting. So something for everybody. And really, if you're not interested in one, the next one's going to come along in 10 minutes. So it's going to be great. We have a band here that is a band at the Young Men's Social Club. So come hear them. They're going to start off the evening. We've got great food that you can buy. By the way, the event is free to the public, so come by, have a good time. If you like it, just give a little donation to the facilities for the Young Men's Social Club. And we hope to see lots of people Thursday night.
Thank you very much. Not hard to find.
No, you can walk here from town, as you know. It's right tucked away, just in the back of town. And just walk over here after work and have some drinks, a few drinks, and eat some dinner, and then the presentations will start.
8 students who qualified as Bermuda government scholars have received up to $35,000 each to further their education from Education Minister Wayne Scott, in addition to the 39 other awardees who were granted awards that covered teacher training, mature students, further education, and scholarships. The 8 were Cara Phillip, Amber Farrow, Christina Grant, Brianna Siddle, Kathleen Macbeth, Nicholas Pell, Alida Rattery, and Danielle Oatley. Mr. Scott reported there had been 230 applications. And now we turn to Earl Baisden with the latest from the sports desk.
Bermuda's 2 Buckeye athletes were back in action for the second day in a row, taking part in the Parapan Games in Toronto. In the individual BC4 preliminary third round, Steve Wilson won his match 3-2 against Adolfo Disado from Mexico. Yushey de Silva Andrade, playing in the individual BC2 preliminary third round, was deadlocked at 3-3 when her match ended against Jesus Osagie from Mexico. Osagie won on a tiebreaker. Jesse Washington returned home following the 2015 Canadian Age Group Championships in Quebec City, where he won the 200-meter freestyle gold medal for 16-year-old boys. Washington gave this self-evaluation of his performance.
I think my performance was, well, it's what I was expecting to do. I wanted to go there and get personal best times. As far as medaling, I wasn't really looking to get into the podium. I was definitely hoping to make finals. But I've been working hard since Carifta and CCCAN to try to get more personal best times, and went to Canadian Age Groups and did it.
Dominique Mayo competed in Stage 3 of the Grand Prix Cyclist going on in Canada, competing in a hill climb that covered some 14 kilometers. Mayo finished 26th, crossing the line in a time of 25:35. Mayo finished 1 minute and 10 seconds behind stage winner David Durin, who clocked 24:20. Kimiko Smith teed off in the Great Lakes Tour Platinum Series event number 2 at the Blue Springs Golf Course in Canada. Smith shot an opening round 8 over par 80 to end the day tied 25th. Smith was 4 over on the front and back nines. His round included 3 birdies, 8 pars, 4 bogeys, 2 double bogeys, and 1 triple bogey. The Western County Cup competition, as well as Bermuda Cricket Board Premier and First Division matches, took center stage this weekend. And we now take a look at some of the top performers with both bat and ball. In the batting department, Deontay Darrell from Willicott had a good weekend at the wicket, where he scored a total of 216 runs in 2 visits at the crease, taking the number 1 and number 3 spots. Darrell was the top scorer for the weekend with a top knock of 131 in his team's Premier Division win over the Somerset Cricket Club. For Craig Crockett from St. David's Cricket Club had the second best knock of the weekend, scoring 96 runs against Cleveland County. Darrell scored 85 for his team in their Western County Cup win over Somerset Bridge. With figures of 6 overs, 3 maidens, 4 for 14, it saw O.J. Pitcher from St. David's Cricket Club return the best figures of the weekend in his team's victory over Cleveland County. Kyle Hudson from Bailey's Bay was the week's second top bowler, returning figures of 7 overs, 1 maiden, 4 for 15. The figures of 9 overs, 2 maidens, 4 for 16 saw Derek Brinkman from Southampton Rangers have the third best figures of the week in his team's 12-run victory over Bailey's Bay. The FDU Foreland field hockey team traveled to Bermuda for a summer field hockey training trip. The team was using the trip to take on the Bermuda Federation Cup team. They are also attending training sessions hosted by Pablo Lumbi, the former Argentina head field hockey coach. Bermuda held a 2-1 lead at the half last evening at the National Sports Center, with goals from Jessica Hollis and Liz Stewart, both from penalty corners. The lone goal for FDU in the first half came off the stick of Cassidy Egan. Bermuda got 2 field goals from Rice Trott and a penalty corner goal from Stewart as they took a 5-1 lead, but Kim Davis scored from a penalty corner for FDU in the final minute to make the final score 5-2. Staying with hockey news, the Bermuda inline hockey season continued with a doubleheader at the PCC hockey rink last evening, where a total of 39 goals were scored. In the opener, the match between St. George's Generals and the Paget Pistols needed a penalty shootout to determine a winner, as the Paget Pistols scored 3 times in the overtime shootout and limited the St. George's Generals to 2 to win the match 11-10. Joe Neal scored 4 times to lead the Paget Pistols to victory, while Adam Mattol added a hat-trick. Chris Gantier scored twice, with Shannon Goose and Greg Vandermeer adding a goal each. St. George's Generals got 5 goals from Andrew Karnal. They also got 2 goals apiece from Patrick Neal and Pete Brodsky. James Amaral added the other goal. In the nightcap, the Pembroke Pirates defeated the Somerset Snappers 11-7. The Pembroke Pirates got 4 goals from Adam Smith, while Mark Heisman, Matthew Desjardins, and Jacob Amlong all added 2 goals each. Max Bovin scored the other. Christopher Jackson, Jeff Marash, and Matt Kaz all added 2 goals each for the Somerset Snappers, while Matthew Benson added the other. 10-man Limerick produced an incredible fight back to beat the Bohemians 4-3 in a thrilling SSE Premier Division match at the Markets Field. After being down 3-1 at halftime, Freddie Hall produced an heroic save to deny Jake Kelly from 10 yards out as his team was already leading 4-3 to salvage the win. Meanwhile, the Bermuda Football Association invites the community to join the exciting game of beach soccer. The Bermuda Football Association will be holding a community beach soccer tournament on August 22nd at the Horseshoe Bay Beach, beginning at 11 a.m. The Bermuda Football Association extends an open invitation to interested people to submit teams to the tournament. Teams are comprised of a goalkeeper and 4 players on the pitch with unlimited roll on and off subs. The format will be group stage matches, then playoffs to the finals. Each team will have a minimum of 3 matches during the tournament. A match will comprise of 2 12-minute halves. I'm Earl Basden reporting for VSB Sports.
Looking at the weather for Wednesday, August the 12th, there will be a mix of sun and cloud with a few showers around. Winds will be southerly, light to moderate, increasing moderate around showers, backing southeasterly overnight. We're expecting a high near 86 and a low near 77. This weather report is courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thank you for watching VSB News Online for Tuesday, August 11th. I'm Charles Webb.